All right, before we jump into anything, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever looked at another business and thought to yourself, how the hell are they doing better than me? Maybe you've seen someone who's honestly not as good, their work isn't better, their service isn't better, their product isn't better, but somehow they're booked out. They're charging more, people keep talking about them. Meanwhile, you're sitting there thinking, what am I missing? If you ever felt like that, you're definitely not alone. I used to think the exact same thing. And honestly, I spent years trying to solve the wrong problem. I thought if I just became better, people would eventually notice, but that's not really how business works. So, over the next 15 to 20 minutes, I want to show you one mindset shift that completely changed how I look at business. Because once this clicked for me, everything else started making sense. And I promise, this isn't another marketing video telling you to post 3 times a day or chase the newest algorithm. That goes way deeper. But before I explain any of that, you should probably know why I'm even qualified to talk about this. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Van. I'm a tattoo artist, a business owner, and honestly, I became so obsessed with figuring out why some businesses explode while others stay stuck. But it definitely wasn't always like that. When I first opened up my studio, I thought success was pretty simple. Just work harder, right? Become the best tattoo artist you possibly can. Post more, stay later, take every client, say yes to everything. And eventually, people would notice. Sounds logical, right? That's exactly what I believed. And honestly, it worked until it didn't. I hit a point where I was working my ass off, but my business wasn't growing the way I thought it should. That's when I met my mentor, Raphael Tats. And I'll never forget it. Maybe within 15 to 30 minutes, he started pointing out problems that I didn't even know existed. Not my tattoos, not my pricing, not my artwork. It's my mindset. He showed me that I wasn't actually building a business. I was just getting better at doing tattoos. Those are two complete different things. And once I started changing the way I thought, my business changed with it. That shift eventually helped me grow from around $8,000 a month to over $68,000 a month. Not because I suddenly became a better tattoo artist overnight, but because I became a better business owner. Everything I'm going to teach you today started with that realization, which led me to asking you one question that completely changed how I looked at every business. Why do some businesses stay stuck? Here's a question I couldn't stop thinking about. Why can two businesses sell almost the same exact product, get completely different results? Think about that for a second. Same city, same industry, similar prices, similar skill set, but one is constantly chasing customers while the other one has people waiting to work with them. Why? Most people immediately say, well, they probably just have better product, but I don't buy that because I've seen incredible businesses fail and I've seen average businesses absolutely dominate. So I started paying attention. I started studying business outside of tattooing, contractor, gyms, salons, agency, or whatever. After a while, I realized something. Almost everyone was looking at the wrong things. They were copying what they could see instead of understanding what was actually making those businesses successful. And that's where everything started to click because the answer wasn't what I expected. Okay. And it definitely wasn't what most people were talking about. Why do some businesses stay stuck? Here's a question I couldn't stop thinking about. Why can two businesses selling almost the same exact thing get completely different results? Think about that for a second. Same city, same industry, same prices, similar skill set, but one is constantly chasing customers while the other one has people waiting to work with them. Why? Most people immediately say, well, they must just be better. But I don't buy that because I've seen incredible businesses fail and I've seen average businesses absolutely kill it. So I started paying attention. I started studying businesses outside of tattooing, contractors, gyms, salons, you name it. And after a while, I realized something. Almost everyone was looking at the wrong things. They were copying what they could see instead of understanding what was actually making those businesses successful. And that's where everything started to click because the answer wasn't what I expected and it definitely wasn't what most people were talking about. So after studying all these different businesses, I started noticing a pattern. And honestly, it kind of pissed me off because it proved something I didn't want to believe. We've all been told the same thing. Just become better at your craft, right? Better tattoo artist, better barber, better contractor, better. And don't get me wrong, you absolutely should become better. But here's the problem. Being better doesn't automatically make people choose you. Think about this. Have you ever eaten at an incredible little restaurant where the food was unbelievable, but the place was completely empty? I know I have. Then 5 minutes down the road, there's another restaurant with just mediocre food, average. And there's an hour wait just to get the table. Why? It wasn't because the food was better. It was because people felt more certain. And that's when it hit me. People don't buy the best. They buy the business they're most certain about. They don't buy the best, guys. They buy the ones that feels like the safest decision. They think, yeah, this is my person. That's why I trust. That's why trust matters so much. That's why positioning matters so much. That's why communication matters, because all of those things reduce uncertainty. And when uncertainty goes down, buying becomes easier. That was the first belief that completely changed the way I look at business. So naturally, I started asking, okay, if people don't buy quality, what actually creates demand? Now, here's something I wish someone would have told me years ago. Everybody's chasing attention. More followers, more views, more likes, more reach. And don't get me wrong, attention is important, but attention by itself doesn't pay your bills. Think about it. How many viral videos have you watched this week? Probably a lot. How many businesses do you actually remember? Probably not many. That's because attention disappears. Trust sticks. I always tell people this. Attention is rented. Trust is owned. And that's a completely different game, right? If all your content does is get attention, congratulations. You entertained somebody for 30 seconds. But if your content builds trust, now you've got something. Because every single piece of content should answer one question in your customer's mind. Can I trust this person? That's it. Not, is this entertaining? Or whatever. Once I started creating content through that lens, everything changed. My consultations got easier. My sales got easier. Clients already understood why I charge. They weren't just buying a tattoo anymore. They were buying confidence. And once I understood that, I started seeing it everywhere. Let me give you an example. One of the people I've had the opportunity to work with is my coworker, Bear. I think her story is a perfect example of what we've been talking about. Now, here's what's interesting. When we first started working together, the problem wasn't that she couldn't tattoo. She's very talented. The problem wasn't that people hated her work. The problem was that her business wasn't communicating her value. And that's a huge difference. A lot of people think that better clients magically appear once your work reaches a certain level. That's not how it works. Better clients show up when your message reaches a certain level. So we didn't just focus on making prettier Instagram posts. We worked on how she positioned herself, how she talked about her work, how she built trust before anyone even sent a DM, how every piece of content has a purpose. Little by little, things started changing. Better conversations, better inquiries, better clients. And that's because we weren't trying to convince people to buy anymore. We were trying to help her get the right people to convince themselves, right? That's a massive difference. People think sales happen in the DM. And I honestly think most sales happen long before someone ever reaches out. Every post, every story, every interaction. You're either building trust or you're creating doubt. There really isn't much in between. So if you made it this far, here's something I want you to stop doing immediately. Stop looking at your content as content. Seriously, because that's what most people do. They wake up, they stare at their phone and think, all right, what should I post today? Wrong question. Your content isn't the product. Your content is a conversation that happens before the sale. Every reel, every story, every YouTube video, every caption is either building trust or is doing absolutely nothing. Think about the people you follow. There's probably somebody you would buy from tomorrow, even if you've never met them. Why? Because over time, they've answered your questions, they've removed the doubts, they've proven they know what they're talking about, and that's trust. And here's the funny part. Most business owners think clients buy because they understand the service. I don't think that's true. I think people buy because they understand the person. They understand how you think. They understand what you believe. They understand why you do things differently. That's why storytelling matters. That's why showing your process matters. That's why explaining your decisions matter. Because trust doesn't happen from one viral video. It's built one conversation at a time. And once I realized that, I stopped trying to impress people. Fuck that. I started trying to remove uncertainty. Which brings me to probably the biggest mistake I see business owners make. Most business owners solve the wrong problems. This one might sting a little bit because I used to do this too. Somebody messaged me once and say, bro, I need more followers. Okay, why? Because I need more leads. All right, why? Because I need more clients. Okay, why? Because I want to make more money. You see what's happening? We keep treating symptoms instead of finding the actual problem. Let me give you an example. If somebody walks in a doctor's office with a fever, the doctor doesn't just throw ice on them and send them home. They ask, what's causing the fever? See, business works the exact same way. Followers usually aren't the problem. Leads usually aren't the problem. Sales usually aren't the problem. Most of the time, those are just symptoms. The real issue is positioning. If people don't immediately understand why they should choose you, everything else gets harder. Marketing, sales, pricing, content, everything just feels like an uphill battle, right? But when you're positioned correctly, it's almost like business starts pulling people towards you. And that's the difference. The goal isn't more attention. The goal is becoming the obvious choice. So after seeing these same problems over and over, I started realizing they all fit into one singular pattern. So after working with enough businesses, I noticed something interesting. Every problem, no matter what the industry they were in, almost always fit into one of these 5 buckets: identity, trust, content, systems, conversion. That's it. Now let me explain. Identity is who you are in the market. What do people actually know you for? Trust? Pretty straightforward. Have you earned enough certainty for someone to feel comfortable buying from you? Content. Is your content actually changing beliefs, or is it just filling space? Systems. What happens after somebody reaches out? Do you have a process, or are you just winging it every single time? And finally, conversion. Once someone is interested, can you actually guide them into becoming a client? Now, here's what's interesting. Most people immediately jump into conversion. They think that I just need to get better at sales. But if identity, trust, content, and systems are weak, sales become an uphill battle. Great sales don't fix weak positioning. Great positioning makes sales feel more natural. That's the difference. And honestly, this framework has become how I look at every single business now. Whether it's tattooing, a barber, a gym, I don't really care what the industry is. Human psychology doesn't change. People buy for the same reasons, they just buy different things. Now, here's the crazy part. Most people spend all their time copying what they can see, without realizing the real advantage is actually hidden underneath. Now you see from this graph, the left side, it says what everyone sees, and the right side is what actually matters. Left side, it's logo, content, prices, followers, website. But what actually matters is positioning, psychology, systems, client journey, and trust. This is probably one of the biggest mindset shifts I've had over the last few years. Most people copy what they can see. They copy someone else's logo, their editing style, their captions, prices, website colors. They copy everything that's visible. But here's the problem. Those aren't the things creating the results. Those are just the thing you notice. It's kind of like watching an NFL game, right? Everybody sees a touchdown, but nobody sees the thousands of hours that's happened before it. Business is exactly the same way. People look at successful business and think, I need to post like them. No, you just need to understand why they posted that. I need their pricing. No, you don't. You need to understand why people were willing to pay it in the first place. That's an invisible side of business. And honestly, that's a part I became so obsessed with, because once you understand the psychology underneath everything, you stop copying and you start creating intentionally. That's when your business starts feeling different. And all of that led me to one question that completely changed the way I create content. If you only remember one thing from this entire video, let it be this. Every single time I create content, before I hit record, before I write a caption or post anything, I ask myself one question. What belief am I trying to change today? That's it. Not what I should be posting today. Honestly, I think that's one of the worst questions you can ask, because that's how people end up posting random tips or trends or some sort of weird TikTok dance shit with no purpose behind it. Instead, ask yourself, what does my ideal client believe right now that's keeping them from buying? Maybe they think cheaper is better. Maybe they think all businesses are the same. Maybe they think they need more followers. Whatever it is, that's what your content should attack. Because once someone's beliefs change, their behavior usually follows. That's why I don't really see content as marketing anymore. I see it as changing the way people think. And if you can consistently do that, people naturally start seeing you as the authority. But here's the thing though. None of that really matters if you don't become the person capable of running the business you actually want. Just imagine this. Somebody reaches out to you and the first question isn't how much. Instead, it's when can we start? Imagine not having to convince people anymore. Imagine not feeling like every inquiry is an uphill battle. Imagine not waking up every morning wondering, what am I supposed to post today? Imagine people already understand your value before they ever send out that first message. That's not luck. That's not because the algorithm finally decided to be nice to you. That's what happens when your business is built on trust instead of attention. Better clients, better conversations, better referrals, better relationships. Everything gets easier. And honestly, that's what I want for every business owners I work with. Not just more money, it's more freedom, more confidence, more clarity. Because when your business works, your life usually gets a whole lot better too. So if you've watched this far, here's what I'd recommend. First of all, I really appreciate you sticking with me. I know 15 to 20 minutes is a long time these days, and hopefully you've realized this wasn't really a video about marketing. It was a video about how to think differently about your business. Because honestly, I can't tell you exactly what's holding your business back from one video. Maybe it's your positioning. Maybe it's your messaging. Maybe it's your system. Maybe it's your sales. Or maybe it's all of them. Every business is different, and that's exactly why I started mentoring. Not to give people more information, there's already enough information out there, right? My job is to help you figure out which information actually matters for your business. To find a bottleneck, fix it, and then move on to the next one. That's how businesses grow. So if you've watched this and thought, honestly, I think I've been solving the wrong problem, then I would love to learn more about your business. Just DM me the word theory. I'll ask you a few questions, where you're at, where you want to go. And if I genuinely think I believe I can help you bridge the gap, I'll explain what working together will look like. Okay, if I don't think we're a good fit, and I'll tell you that too. I'm not looking to work with everyone. I'm looking for a business owner who are actually ready to implement, because information doesn't change businesses, implementation does. I appreciate you guys spending this time with me. I hope this changed the way you look at your business, and hopefully, I'll talk to you soon.